morning. It is Tuesday the 1st of June, and it is the NLP practice evenings. And, you know, normally Nick does these evenings because I'm usually absolutely wiped out by 8 o'clock with the bubba. So he's very good at doing the evening slots. But this was so important to me that I thought, you know what, I really want to do a session on something that very, very recently really just kind of came to my attention, and I thought it was really, really important that I share it with as many people as possible. It is not new in itself. It has, what I'm going to share with you this evening has basically kind of proven everything that I've suspected for many, many years, but not necessarily had all of the right evidence in the right place to really be able to feel confident about sharing it in a forum such as this. So tonight I want to talk to you about kind of the science of Metabology, it's called, and our metabolism and how it works, and how as NLP coaches, so a lot of us are professional coaches, some are just practicing coaches, but probably all of us in one way or another are affected by the notion, concept, stigma, if you will, of weight loss or weight itself. So as a coach, it is something that I get asked about fairly regularly. It's usually in the list of goals that someone has, even if it's not the goal. And I'm always very reluctant to work with it as a goal in itself, for my own reasons and my own experience, but now even more so. So I want to give you everything that I can think of that would be useful for you as coaches, and then as a byproduct yourself in your own lives, and the information and the science that will help you to preferably prevent what I think is a potentially, life-threatening and destructive spiral that people get into once they start thinking about weight loss. So this for me is something I think is kind of critical to the health of our nation, the health of our children. I think we need to understand why this subject of weight loss, the idea of weight stigma, how dangerous it is, and what we can do as coaches to educate people, educate ourselves, and obviously, which is the crux of everything that we do, help people to live happy and joyful lives. So why am I talking about this then? Why does it matter to me? Well, because at age 7, I remember starting my first diet. And whenever I've looked back at my past before and I've thought about being age 7, it didn't really mean much to me until I had Rocky, and now I'm like, wow, that's really young. That's actually really young. So what started it was a neighbour gave me this really great book for my birthday on counting calories, and I was super confused because I really looked up to this neighbour. I thought it was, he was like my uncle or something. He was lovely, and he was obviously very well-meaning, and he gave me this calorie counter and explained to me that food makes you fat. And that if I didn't want to be as fat, that I could reduce the number of calories that I ate and not be as fat anymore. Now, because I'd already experienced being bullied for being fat, but I didn't understand the connection about food and weight at that time, it was like a revelation to have someone explain it to me. And it was so logical what to do about it. It was like, oh my God, I had no idea. Right, well, I'm super logical. So if I just don't eat, I'll be slimmer and then people will like me. Isn't that just the most logical perfect scenario. So I went on my first diet at 7, and I still remember what I ate. And I kept a little list of all the calories that I ate. And I remember if I had butter on my toast, I could only have 1 piece. But if I had no butter, I could have 2 pieces. I always went for the butter option. You know, I literally can still remember at age 7 what I was eating, and I was so excited to see how few calories I could eat, and I thought I was just so brilliant. And then what was very disappointing was then, as soon as I returned to, you know, somewhat normal, you know, normal food without sort of counting calories, the weight kind of just went back on again. And interesting enough, it didn't actually change how people treated me anyway. So that is why that started my kind of journey into this lifetime issue around calorie counting, dieting, prejudice, weight stigma, shame, and, you know, just denial of self and self-worth. So I also had a dad that was very keen that a woman had to be slim if she were to be respected and desirable. So he was very vocal about my weight. And the shocking thing is if you actually look back at photos of me, I'm perfectly slim as a child, and then just literally something happened at 7. And I can only equate it with going to big school, or my mum going back to work potentially. But there was literally, and I remember them saying I was big boned and fat then, and I look at pictures of myself now, and it's like, no, what, I really wasn't at all, just heavier set than my sisters. So growing up in that environment, it was just very, very easy to succumb to this notion that I should be ashamed of myself, that it's, you know, that I should constantly be trying to conform to this ideal of what I should look like. And even when I was, what I considered to be, I was probably a size 12, which I think for most women, they're like, cool, that's a really nice, you know, weight to be, or size to be. And I went to an osteopath and she knew that I was a performance coach, because my mum had been saying how amazing I was, bless her. And this woman sort of looked me up and down. She said, oh, and I said, oh dear, what's happened? Bearing in mind she's, you know, she's an osteopath. And she said, oh, well, I just envisaged somebody slim because your mum said you were, you know, a performance coach. And I said, oh. My brain immediately thinking of all the comebacks that I could that I could say to that, and I think I was just so gobsmacked. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, there's my biggest fear, that people are thinking it. But thanks for, you know, having the courage to go ahead and say it out loud. That's amazing." But you know, even up until I would say a few years ago, it still kind of was on my mind. You know, like, oh, I should be up at 5, you know, running my marathons, you know, to do the job I do. And, you know, really very quickly talked myself out of that and thought, I don't need to do that. Not unless I want to. And then very recently, this book that's that basically put it all together, and I thoroughly recommend that everybody read it, or listen to the audio book, because his voice is actually great. But it's called Why We Eat Too Much by Andrew Jenkinson. And he literally puts it all together, all the science, everything he's done. Now, I don't agree with him on every single point, but he is a bariatric surgeon, so he does, you know, stomach stapling and stuff for a living. So he does have a dog in the game somewhere along the line. However, he said he started out with these kind of prejudicial beliefs about his patients at the beginning, and then over time, after he heard all the same stories from these people coming to see him, they were all so desperate, they felt trapped, they felt they had dieted but they couldn't keep the weight on. Every time they dieted, they seemed to put on more weight afterwards. They were constantly ravenously hungry, and despite feeling ashamed, and they just didn't seem to be able to get a handle on it. And at first he was just like, well, it's just it's just your lifestyle choices. After a while he started to do more research into it and educated himself, and now he luckily lectures to medical students who get zero training on what causes obesity, or at least not when he studied medicine. And one of the most important reasons why I'm talking to you about this tonight is because of the weight stigma in the NHS. So there is a huge amount of stigma in the media, but also in the medical profession, such that people who are heavier set, overweight, obese, whatever you want to call it, actually don't go for medical treatment because they're so terrified of being treated badly. So I think this is a really, really, that's what I mean when I say life-saving or life-threatening issue. I think it's to say. All right, so let's get into it. So what I wanted to ask you guys is, as humans, as coaches, what do you think the perception of obesity is in the media? Like if you relied on the media for your, for your perceptions of weight, weight gain, obesity. Like, for example, is it an epidemic? Is everyone obese now?
Yes, I've often heard the news channels saying that obesity is the next biggest pandemic within the UK, and they're often blaming it on lifestyles of the young generation, where so many of the younger generation are now obese because of the fast food culture and stuff like that. Right.
Great. So there's a sense that this perception of lifestyle choices, what you eat, there's sort of pictures of people. Whenever the BBC does anything on obesity, sure enough, there's some poor woman walking down the high street and who they've shot the footage for, who's larger set, completely, unaware that it's being filmed, or, pictures of people eating burgers and, bad food. What else are we told about obesity in the media? So yeah, pandemic, epidemic.
People have done it to themselves. It's their own faults.
100%. 100%. That there's the implication, the presupposition is that it's choice. That it's absolutely a lifestyle choice. You've chosen to do it, or you're choosing not to lose weight. What else do we hear about obesity? Why does the media want us to care about it?
I see a lot of judgment in the media around, it was funny, I saw two different articles in 2 different days, and one was a woman who'd had a baby and she hadn't lost the baby weight, and the second one was one that had lost the baby weight but lost it too quickly. And it's like, you can't win then, can you? There's no right way around. And then you've got the pictures in magazines of who wore it better. So they put 2 people in the same clothes, and you have to judge which one of them looks better in those clothes. Yeah, it's a horrible way to judge people just by what they look like.
Right. So for me, there is exactly that. There's the perceptions about how you look. So there's the body image aspect, which we are supposed to care about. We're not supposed to, but we do. So that's very much fed to us exactly in that way. The programs that are on the TV and encouraging this idea of weight loss and boot camp, and that you can be mean to people because they've got it coming, and it's about discipline and willpower. And then there's the health aspect, right? So how many, let's just do a quick kind of poll here. I haven't got an actual poll, that's way too high tech for this. But just a quick show of hands. How many of you, if you believed what the media told you, would believe that obesity, is a killer? Like obesity, if you're obese, you are more likely to get diseases and die. Yeah, I haven't seen any no's yet. Like, if you just went on what the media told you, yeah, vast numbers of you, I think would, yeah, I think it's fair to say that is the narrative. Yeah, that is the absolute narrative. And yet, do we have any statisticians on the call, other than myself, obviously? But do we have any statisticians on the call? Anyone who's done research, statistics?
I haven't done research statistics, but I've heard a lot of research statistics.
Yeah, okay. So there is a huge difference, I mean, cavernous difference between a link between something, a correlation between something, and causation. Yeah. So if you said, if you did, what's the word? What's the archaeology? And many, many hundreds of years or thousands of years from now, you dug up some ground and you found loads of fire remains and fire engines together, you'd assume that fire engines started fires, right? You just would. You would just assume, oh, they show up together every time. Maybe the fire engines are the ones that cause the fire. Because you have no context for which happened first. So the correlation between obesity and all of these diseases is there is nothing that proves causation. Now, to be caused, you'd have to look at a population and go, right, well, everybody with type 2 diabetes is overweight. That's a pretty damning study, right? If everybody who had type 2 diabetes was overweight. However, that's not the case. So what's happening to those people that aren't overweight then? What's causing it in them? And for many years now, I've believed that, and especially because if you coach on this subject long enough, you do start to see weight as a symptom of other stuff, as opposed to weight being the cause of something. You see weight being a symptom. So this perception that obesity is a killer is not backed up by studies that show causation. So correlation, I'm all over that, link to that, yeah, absolutely. But what that does is it warrants more investigation. And an interesting premise is if you go, and then again, because Andrew Jenkinson's is a bariatric surgeon, hours after having bariatric surgery, type 2 diabetes is cured. So if you can cure type 2 diabetes just by bypassing the stomach in an operation, then isn't it fair to say that the weight hasn't changed? The amount of fat in this person's body has not changed. And therefore, they have cured their type 2 diabetes by having an operation. That to me does not imply that it's the fat stores causing the problem. There is some, yes, mechanical, yes, some physical, yes, some chemical, some other issue going on that warrants more investigation. And the reason I say that is not because I want a study of, this stuff. What I want is for people who have already essentially perhaps got a problem to be stigmatized with the symptom of that problem. If it is a disease, then it needs to be treated as a disease, as a actual disease that is not someone's fault in the same way as any other disease doesn't cause the individual who has that disease to worry about seeking treatment, because they're going to be told it's their fault and they have to go away and shrink their own tumor because, it was your lifestyle choices that caused it. That's not how we treat people. That's not how I want to treat people in society. So I think the perceptions do matter, and I do think that we question them. And be much more scientific about what we're talking about, and the science does not show it. There's a website I'm going to give you for reference as well, if anybody wants to kind of have a look at this in more detail. And certainly one of the arguments I saw on social media lately, which was really funny, was someone who was saying that weight loss is the solution for obesity-related illnesses. And this lady, who I also recommend that you follow, I'll put her details at the end, she was saying, show me evidence that weight loss is the solution to obesity. Right? And they were like, or to any health-related issues that you think obesity causes. And this person was like flabbergasted because they couldn't get over, if, let's just say, for example, if obesity causes diabetes, then losing weight is the solution, right? And they couldn't get past what this doctor essentially was saying to them, which is, show me the evidence that weight loss is the cure. It hasn't been done. It's not there. In the same way as has anybody ever had water retention? Anyone ever had water retention, bloated feet, foot bloated, ankles, hands, anything like that? Anybody had water retention? Happens a lot in pregnancy, for starters. So does anybody know what causes water retention? One of the causes or several of the causes? So the jury's really out, but there's a few things like, salt. I know the German New Medicine cause of it, but in terms of the media and things like that. Now, if you think about it in an interesting way, ultimately, the body takes on water because it senses that it needs a store of it, like a camel. So the absolute most anti-intuitive thing you could say to someone who's got water retention is stop drinking water, right? You're drinking too much. That's why you've got too much in your body, right? You've overdrank. You fool. You need to not drink as much. Now that is the equivalent of saying to somebody who is overweight, you need to stop eating. Because the body is retaining something for a reason. Removing it further compounds why it thinks it needs to store it. So I'll get into this in a second. Has anybody got any personal experience of kind of this issue around weight loss and dieting and yo-yo dieting and a bad body image? Has anybody ever experienced that? At any weight, obviously, any size, yeah?
Yeah, I carry 7 stones of excess fat and have yo-yo dieted and tried several various things over the years.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm hoping to change your life then tonight. I'm going to tell you. Yeah. So dieting. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, Jess, I'm the same. Tried everything under the sun, up and down, up and down. So yeah, but it's a constant battle. It's waking up every morning and the constant thinking about food and trying to be good Monday to Friday and then letting it go at the weekend, which isn't healthy. So,
is it maybe I should try keto? Maybe I should try this kind of diet. Maybe I should try intermittent fasting. Maybe I should do detox. Maybe I should do right, HIIT training. Maybe I should do a retreat. Maybe I should try everything, right? Constant. Has anybody put their life on hold until they lost weight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see myself. I've got 2 screens going. It's Helen here. Hi. Yeah, I was anorexic as a teenager, but not because of body image. I just didn't want to eat.
Right.
There was, whatever. And then when I started eating, of course, I stopped everything. Because my body was going, you are famished, you are famished, you are famished. And then, so every I'm constantly watching it, constantly.
Right.
And since I've got this knee problem, can't walk at the moment, no exercise, can't go anywhere. It's always, you're always thinking about it all the time, and you're thinking, when I've lost some weight, I can go and do this.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's it. And we're also told, like, you know, oh wow, you know, being able, that's not going to help if you've got any, you know, musculoskeletal issues. I was told to lose weight when I had a chronic back problem, and I lost loads of weight. It didn't help at all.
Yeah, I've had a mixture actually, because you know I live in France, and I have people here who say, yeah, you can't lose weight while you're in this state.
Right.
When you get better, you'll be able to.
Right, which is really,
it's a slightly different approach here, and there's no, it's a very different approach to weight in France. You know how skinny these French women are.
Right, and
yeah,
per se, I guess, do they? They certainly wouldn't catch them eating a Weight Watchers yogurt.
Ugh.
Right. So this kind of, for me, this is the real tragedy. This is the real loss of life here. This is the real reason to pay attention, because not living your life, not going out there, you know, people saying, oh, I need to lose weight before I get a partner, you know, before a partner will find me attractive. And it's like, oh my God, I'll go out again when I fit down into my nice clothes, and I won't buy myself new clothes until I've lost weight, because, you know, I don't deserve them, or I don't want to waste the money. This for me is just an absolute waste of life. So just to compound the problem so that you're really, really ready to hear what I have to say. Weight stigma, by the way, is now 66% higher than it was 10 years ago, which means that it is, certainly in North America, where one study was done, it is close to racism as the biggest form of prejudice. And people in the study mentioned there, people will more likely think you lazy, unintelligent, lacking self-discipline, and unmotivated compared to those of lower weight. So if you're obese, that is the prejudice that you're facing. It's also in the studies that have been done and referenced there, that people are less likely to give you a job if you're overweight. So this is serious. This is serious. You know, being told to go away and lose weight because you can't have an operation, or, you know, even people like Katie Hopkins, who are saying that, you know, I think she said a long time ago, you know, she said NHS resources should be restricted to people who are overweight. This is the sort of thing that we're up against, and I just think it's wrong, but it's also based on you know, non-factual evidence. Okay, and plus I don't think punishing people is ever the right way to go. The psychological effects, now as coaches, that we should care about this, that weight stigma is linked with, surprise, surprise, poorer body image, poor psychological well-being, lower self-esteem, high levels of depression and anxiety. Now, this is interesting. Weight-related teasing. Now, I love the word teasing. It really softens it, doesn't it? Predicted future issues with being overweight, disordered eating, and binge eating 5 years on. So that's 5 years after the fact. And obviously, weight bias, weight stigma means people don't want to go to the gym. They don't want to go out and run. I certainly, you know, running down the road or whatever. Even when I wasn't, in my mind, you know, wasn't very heavy, exercising outdoors would have people commenting in all kinds of hideous, horrible ways that made me not want to exercise outside in front of people. So I tended to do more of the aggressive sports because I just got to hit people, which is right. Okay, so this is why all of this happens. this is why all of that weight stigma and all of the prejudice that you deal with, this is why this happens. And it's because of the belief about weight, which is the very Newtonian law: energy in minus energy out equals energy stored. And to demonstrate this in the method of physical gesture, as one guy said to me once, he went, a little bit less of that, a bit more of this. So a little bit less eating, a bit more exercise, and that's the problem solved, isn't it? Now, no wonder people think obese people are stupid if they can't figure that out, right? How stupid do you have to be? Obviously, it's the food. Stop eating, move a bit more. Obviously. Now, obviously, that belief in itself means, well, obviously you're choosing it because it is within your control not to, to eat too much. And if it's not within your control to stop eating, then you've just got a lack of willpower. And not moving is about laziness. And it's a simple case of restricting calories so that you'll lose weight and keep it off, obviously. And obviously, exercising does burn off calories, so that's another obvious one. Just do more exercise. Seems simple. Now, I'm not going to go through every piece of science here because I think you can go through the book at length if you're interested, but there are a few that I think are really important here. So, the Vermont prison overeating study. Some of the prisoners, I love, there's another prejudice right there, using people in prison to experiment on. However, when offered the opportunity to be in a study where you get to eat 10,000 calories a day, I'm guessing, and what involved a full American breakfast, I'm sure many of them jumped at the chance. But even though some of these people were eating 10,000 calories a day, they struggled to put on weight. So think about that for a second. They had to eat 10,000 calories extra. Their exercise was limited, so they weren't allowed to move around. And it wasn't like all but a few put on weight. Most of them struggled to put on weight, and even at 10,000 calories, so they kept upping the calories if you weren't gaining weight. And then they all, as soon as they all returned to normal eating, their weights returned to normal. Why would that be, do you think, if when forced to gain weight, it was actually a struggle? Another study, it's not on here, where should I talk about it in a minute? I'll talk about obesity rates in a second. So that's the overeating study. So what the hell was going on there then that meant that some people really struggled to put on weight? Now, the Minnesota starvation experiment. So these were conscientious objectors to the war. So instead of going to war, they were given restricted diets and made to do physical labor to kind of look at what would be happening to people in prison camps. Their weight obviously dropped, but their metabolism dropped by 50%. So they expected metabolism to drop because their weight was dropping, so there's not as much energy needed to run a smaller body. But they didn't expect 50% the metabolism to drop by. And of course, as soon as they started eating normally, this time their weight didn't return to normal. Their weight went up afterwards. So it returned to normal plus a bit more. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because that now mirrors what some of you have talked about in terms of, can't keep it off, why it keeps going back on as soon as you return to, in quotes, normal eating. Now, the Rockefeller study looked at, again, metabolism rates, and what it realized was human beings have an individual set point, just like a thermostat, for thirst, heat, and every other way that your body runs. Metabolism works like a thermostat. So there's some imaginary set point that says what a healthy weight is for you. Like, what is a healthy weight for your survival? And then if you eat more food, the metabolism increases to reduce the effect of that food so you don't store it. So you just have a faster metabolism. So all these years, when I've been looking at my friends thinking, how the hell do you eat so much? Maybe I'm just eating in my sleep and I don't even notice. Like maybe I'm blacking out and stuffing my face, because I went on holiday with one of my best friends, and she had eaten more calories before we got to the airport than I ate in a whole day. And I just was like, you are a machine. I couldn't eat that much if I tried. And yet she's tiny, tiny. So this is like the science, and this is not new science. This was done years ago. So it's been there right in front of our faces. But the metabolism can adapt to increase or decrease to keep you at whatever set point has been designated for your survival, for your, you know, healthiest prospects, let's say, as an animal. The other scary thing, so those people that kind of go, God, I've got no willpower, I've got no, you know, I feel hungry, I give into it. Well, you are up against something called ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone. And this study by Cummings et al. Was showed that even after 10 weeks of, after a year after a 10-week diet, hunger hormone was still elevated. Like the body was saying, hey, well, let's make sure that never happens again. As soon as you restrict calories, ghrelin, you know, the stomach recognizes that it's empty, it's hungry, and gives off this hormone. And I think the starvation experiment had to actually, the Minnesota one had to be ended because some guy almost chopped off his arm doing, he went crazy, like just went absolute nuts during the experiment because of the hunger hormone. So those of you that have been on a diet and never killed anyone, that is an actual miracle, let's face it, okay? Because if you felt that hunger hormone that has made you smell things that other people can't smell because it's made you super sensitive to anything that might be food in your environment, you know how crazy making it can be. And all the while you're telling yourself you're not disciplined, right? There's your subconscious mind thinking you've gone insane and that you're going to die, and you have the willpower to overcome that. So there's nothing wrong with your willpower. And then we've got leptin. So I can't remember the name of the study, I'll have to find it. But basically leptin is the master controller of your fat store. So leptin is the kind of magic hormone here. So the more fat cells you have, the more leptin hormone you produce, and the brain hears, gets the signal of the leptin, and that tells the brain, oh, we have enough fat stores now, so we don't need them anymore. So that then starts the process of increasing metabolism, decreasing appetite, so that you don't put on weight. So once your fat stores give off enough leptin hormone, you don't put on any more weight. That's why loads of people can stay at the same weight forever and ever and ever, and you wonder how they do it. So their brain receives the signal that they've gone on holiday and they've eaten too much, and their metabolism goes up and their appetite is suppressed, so that when they go back to normal, the weight comes off. Twin studies. This is probably the most staggering one. So twin studies. Twins separated at birth, or before, probably not before, but separated sometime after birth or at birth, but basically they've lived in different families. So you cannot blame environment. So you can't say, well, one's been raised on burgers and the other one's been raised on tofu, for why, when they were studied, why were they never the same weight? And for some of you, you're not going to want to hear this, but in those twin studies, the results were that 77% of weight was down to the genetic influence. So 77% is natural selection, gives you your body type. So if you're ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph, that's basically in your genetics. And 10% is environmental. So there was essentially a 10% discrepancy between the twins, right, which would account for the environment they grew up in. Now, because we do NLP, we don't have to worry about, you know, absolutes. You can basically work with anything. But like I said, remember I said when I was a little, I was heavier set, like definitely I was heavier set than my sisters, but I wasn't fat. I was, you know, if you were going to line us up and decide what sports we would do, I'd have been the swimmer, right? Not the shot putter, I'd have been the swimmer one and they'd have been the dancers, right? Totally genetically just, you know, a healthy body. Okay. But you can be genetically sensitive to starvation, let's say, right? Process of natural selection. Natural selection is going to favor human beings that are sensitive to starvation, right? That keep their metabolisms low if they sense that there's hunger, starvation. The other one, which is epigenetics. So if you're this Dutch famine birth cohort study found that if women went on a diet during pregnancy, their offspring were more likely to be obese. Right, so think about the 9 months where you're preparing your baby for the outside world. You were preparing it for famine. And then when they came out earthside, turns out there wasn't a famine after all, but they were already primed for a famine. So epigenetics is more the flexible style of genes. So just because you have a gene doesn't mean to say you express the gene. So this is where the Joe Dispenzas of the world and the Bruce Liptons say you can change all of that. So just because you have a gene, you can switch it off given the right environment. All right, so for those of you who think you should just exercise more to burn off calories, 70% of your calories go towards your basal metabolic rate, which you can't change. Like it doesn't, the number of calories you need to run your body doesn't change. And the only thing really that makes much of a difference is whether you are, is your passive energy expenditure, like breathing and so on, compared to your active energy expenditure. If you want to go run a marathon, so on, you can, but trying to do it to burn calories is a massive, massive waste of time. Because that's not where you're going to, you know, that's not, if you want to run a marathon, but to do it to burn calories, you're not going to ever be able to burn as much as your basal metabolic rate can burn. So it's a kind of, you're playing with sort of marginal gains if that's what you think the plan is. Okay, so something happened to obesity rates around 1980, 1990. That meant that this became a problem. So before 1980, for thousands of years, human beings haven't really had a problem with it. So what the hell happened in 1980? Anyone think what happened in 1980, 1990?
It's when McDonald's came to the UK, Jess.
Interesting, yeah.
I'm joking. it is actually. They came in late 70s, but I don't think there's any relation to this.
Yeah. Well, what did we eat before processed foods? Because 1980, 1990, I mean, there's a rise. The 1960, 1970, those are, you know, those are actually pretty stable. So something happened after I was born that made them really shoot up. So something quite significant must have happened. Now, does anybody remember things like B-Jam when they came on the scene? Do you remember B-Jam? First frozen foods in this country, like first marketed frozen foods. Very much more the M&S process, you know, the chicken Kiev. Right? Food started to be processed heavily at this point, but also more widely eaten. So, and it's interesting because again, it's not about the amount of food. Right, I should say this right now. The processed foods that people eat today, it's in everything, right? If you think about, you know, cereal, dried good, pretty much everything has been processed in some way, other than your kind of fruits and vegetables. and a lot of that isn't organic unless you chosen to go the full route. Our farming has changed quite substantially, so much more sort of bulk farming now, sort of bigger industrial sort of style of farming. So in 1980, 1990, not only was there more sort of processed foods being eaten more often, but the government guidelines around diet changed. And some of you may or may not remember this, but the government started to demonize saturated fats. Anyone remember that?
Oh, with Rosemary Connolly and stuff like that.
Yeah. Suddenly, saturated fat was the absolute devil, right? People like James Martin have always had to, apologize for, putting more butter in the pan, and then, people, like Flora and, vegetable oils and spreads and things like that were much more, were told those were the healthy ones because you didn't want saturated fat, you wanted polyunsaturated fat. So again, suddenly we're being told to not have as much saturated fat. And of course, if you take the fat out of things don't really taste very nice. So what do manufacturers naturally do if they can't put saturated fat in? What do they put in instead? Completely normally?
Sugar.
I mean, it just makes sense because sugar's not the bad guy. It's saturated fat that's the bad guy. So it doesn't matter if that low fat, zero fat yogurt has more sugar in it because it's zero fat and that's the thing that matters. So that was suddenly a big change in our natural diet, was this increase of vegetable oil. So we're all, switching to sunflower oil, flora spreads and things like that. Now, the big problem with that is the way the body responds to vegetable oil. So does anybody know what's missing in vegetable oil that's present in saturated fats like coconut oil or butter? Okay, good, because I'm glad nobody's has this information. So it's omega-3. So omega-3, you've heard of probably omega-3, 6, 9 oils, that they're good things. Yeah, good for the brain and so on. Well, omega-3 makes food go off. So it's much easier to process it out of food so that it stays fresher for longer, or, stays palatable for longer. Whereas omega-6 lasts a long time, it's a much tougher chemical. But in vegetable oil, the balance is predominantly omega-6. You can't eat vegetable oils if there's omega-3 in them because they go off. So what's happened in our diet is every time you process anything, you strip the omega-3 out of it. Cows are not fed on grass unless you specifically buy grass-fed meat and dairy. They're fed on grains to fatten them up. Now think about it. Why take a cow whose natural diet is grass, like Jen, are you still there? Okay. But in countries like India, Africa, where cattle roam on plains, on grass, they eat grass, they're very thin, they're very slim cows. Whereas the cows that we have in the UK...
I'm here, Jess. Sorry, I'm here.
Hang on. I was just going to ask you what the cows in Ghana look like. The cattle.
They look like they're in a famine. They look very lean and slim, just like you're saying. And even the chickens, my chickens fly into the tree because they're so lean.
Right, there you go. So, and they what do they eat?
Grass, just everything grass.
Right.
Natural.
So this is the fascinating thing. If you feed a cow its natural diet of grass, it's what was it? An ectomorph cow. It's a tiny cow. It's a thin, slim, lean cow. But obviously, if you're growing cattle for meat, you don't want a thin cow. You want a fat cow. So you feed them grains, because grains aren't their natural diet, and so Andrew Jenkinson talks about this, and he says if you feed an animal its not natural diet, it will put on weight. So think about that. If you feed an animal a non-natural diet, it will immediately put on weight. So if you want cows to be fat, feed them grain. If you want chickens to be fat, feed them corn. If you want cows to be slim and lean, feed them grass. So now look at 1980, 1990. Our diet was changed overnight. And I remember my mum rushing out to buy flora because she cared about us so much, you know, like she cared about our health so much. She didn't want, you know, saturated fats anymore because they were the devil. And actually the studies that showed that saturated fat was harmful was actually flawed, and there were equal studies to show that sugar was bad, right? And I've even coached and sacked as a coach a lobbyist for sugar because we had a big row in this, because I was like, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate, see how you handle it. It was just a bit too close to the bone, so she didn't. She didn't respond very well to it because she couldn't really do it. But I just told her what I thought about sugar, hoping that she would have a good argument about it, and she didn't. So there are lobbyists, remember, to obviously encourage the government to put out different guidelines all the time, given whatever industry needs help. And that makes sense, absolutely, except when it's on flawed science that's making this all very unhealthy. So, so the switch to vegetable oils, the switch from omega-3 rich diet to an omega-6 diet increases inflammation in the body. So you're being fed a non-normal diet, which immediately people respond to. Now you just have to look at the numbers to see the correlation, remember, not causation, but the correlation between a change in diet, a change in government guidelines, and the ridiculous obesity rates, which could not account for natural selection at this point. I mean, that graph is increasing way too much for it to be natural selection and natural predisposition here. Something, okay. All right. So this is the normal function of a weight set point. So hopefully everything I've said so far makes sense. Any questions on what I've said so far? So the normal set point, so every single person has a normal weight set point, which is like a thermostat, which will switch on your metabolism if you go beyond it, and will decrease your metabolism if you go beneath it. So totally normal, you go on holiday, put on a bit of weight, and your brain says, oh, whoa, we don't need the extra calories. So increases metabolism, increases the feelings of satiation is another hormone that gets released to decrease appetite, and naturally your food, your eating returns to normal. If you drop under that weight for whatever reason, let's say you get really busy on a project and you just don't eat like normal, your body goes, whoa, oh my God, you're losing weight. Decrease the metabolism. So increase the hunger hormone to make you eat, and reduce the satiation hormone so you feel less satisfied, to make you eat more until you get back to your original set point. So that's how the majority of people sort of fluctuate between a few pounds here and there. It's a normal thermostatic function. Oh, and for anyone saying the obesity rates reflect increase in calories in the normal diet, if the obesity rates reflected the rates of calorie intake, people would be on average 4 stone heavier. They would gain 4 stone a year, and in fact, the increase in calories equates to 1 pound a year. And therefore that explains the metabolism is what's reducing this excess calories that people are eating in their diet. Metabolism, for the most part, is reducing the effects of obesity. So it's not just the amount of calories people are eating these days. Okay, so that's set point, normal function. Let me show you this in a little graph point. So all down to leptin signals, right? Fat stores increase, you put on a bit of weight, leptin gets released, goes to the brain kind of goes, whoa, 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 gone above, don't need it. Get the metabolism racing, appetite reduces, fat stores decrease, leptin decreases as a result. So leptin, remember, that's the magic hormone that we need to remember. And the weight falls below the set point. Brain says, whoa, 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 whoa. Appetite increases, metabolism decreases until you're back wherever you started. So that's the constant thermostatic control of a normal set point. If you've not messed with it, your set point will keep you at the same weight for years and years and years. Has anybody happened to find that? I think there must be a few people that have just, yeah, right, I remember you saying, I've never been on a diet. It's just, yeah, never had to think about it. It's just great.
And I eat a lot of fat as well, a lot of fat.
Tons
of saturated fat.
Okay. But it doesn't, that's the thing, it doesn't matter how much, that's the key. How much is not relevant, because remember that the Vermont prison study, 10,000 extra calories and people couldn't even put on the weight because their metabolism just burned it all off. And I mean, basal metabolic rate burned it off, not activity. Their activity was reduced in the Vermont prison study, right? They still couldn't put on weight. Even when they were lazy and greedy, they still couldn't put on weight. So maybe that's got nothing to do with it. So this is now think about this, how dieting affects the weight set point. So you start dieting because for whatever reason you think you should, immediately the brain goes, what the hell is happening? And decreases metabolism. It increases the hormone ghrelin to make you ravenously hungry, and decreases, can somebody tell me how to say that? Satiety.
Satiety, yeah.
Decreases the level of satisfaction hormone after your meal. So you're not satisfied is the point. So you're hungry, but you can't satisfy the hunger. So even if you manage to lose weight and return to somewhat normal eating, even if normal is healthy at this point, ravenous hunger will take over you. You will be more hungry. Remember, the ghrelin rates will increase a year after a diet, still elevated, the appetite hormone. So just 10 weeks of dieting meant that you'd be more hungry a year later, even if you just ate healthily, and less satisfied. So suddenly the weight piles back on because your metabolism is now smaller. Your weight doesn't return to normal because your set point says, well, if famine's going to happen a lot, we better just have a little bit extra in case this happens again, right? Because if it was famine, your brain doesn't know the difference between diet and famine. It's famine. So it says, whoa, if famine's happening, maybe we should, for next season, maybe we should just take a little bit on board. And so you go, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I hate myself. Why can't I lose weight? I've got to get twice as much done in the gym now, and I'm gonna go on that diet again. But weirdly enough, that diet doesn't work as well. So you have to go up a notch, eat even less, do even more. But sure enough, you get the weight off. Even though you're working against the appetite, even though you're not happy with anything you're eating, and your metabolism screeches to a halt. So even if your weight loss was good at the start, it tails off eventually and you just lose the will to continue. Even if you reach that weight loss, even if you go, okay, fine, I've got it, you go, right, okay, I'm going to eat healthily now. Why is my weight going back up? I can't eat it. I can't sustain the diet, man. That's impossible. So now your weight's going back up. But again, now 2 famines have happened. Your brain's not stupid. So it says, right, I better have as much in store, perhaps, as I even lost the first time. so that we don't die. So your lovely, lovely body that keeps you alive and wants you to stay alive, weirdly enough, looks after you by maintaining extra fat stores. So now the same level of leptin you had before would say that you're still underweight. So now you need more fat stores to tell your body that you've put on enough weight. Okay, and then this continues.
Yes, can I ask a question about ketosis? How is the your set point affected when you change the food that you eat so that you're in ketosis? Because obviously that's a different food type. It's a food group that you're focusing on. So does all of this still apply when you when you try to trigger your body into a reaction like ketosis?
Like ketosis is like the fat burning mode.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if you are in ketosis because you haven't got enough calories, your body is going to be in a state of alarm. If you're in ketosis because you are eating lots of protein, but your body's getting enough calories, there's not necessarily a reason to be alarmed, even though it doesn't really want to not have any carbohydrates, right? It's not necessarily, the fact that they call it, fat burning mode will work, but I don't know that anybody's studied the long-term effects of ketosis itself. I haven't got them to hand if they have. But what I would say is, in one sense, the fact that if you're not calorie counting and you just change the content of the food, that's a better solution. But the whole caveat of what I'm looking at here tonight is changing the perception or changing the mindset from losing weight to health. Therefore, if you said, is eating no carbohydrates healthy? I would say, how do you feel on it long term, right? Because I think long term, is it sustainable? Does it feel good long term? Does it make you glow? Does it make you energized? Does it make you feel great? If you're doing it to lose weight, that for me is the issue. Because you shouldn't be doing anything to try and lose weight, because that makes things worse. Even the mindset, and Nick did this, in sort of part of our kind of lifestyle changes. I kept saying to him, because he changed his diet and started losing weight, and he mentioned, he was like, oh my god, I'm losing loads of weight, and I said stop thinking about it being a good thing, because the moment that you notice it, observe it, think about it, your brain is going to get into the, oh shit, we're starving to death mode. And that is the issue. It's the trying to lose weight is the issue, because you're trying to make your brain think you are starving, and it will slam on the brakes. It will lower your metabolism. So if you just say, you know what, I'm going to eat really wholesome, healthy, amazing food because I want to feel amazing and I want to feed this incredible body the best source of omega-3 rich foods because it makes me feel great. Great. And then don't weigh yourself. Don't think about it. Don't do anything. Just feel great and do what you were going to do before. It's the notion of weight loss that is the disease. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I was going to get into it a little bit, but when anybody says, why do they want to lose weight? Pretty much every reason that you can come up with is shame-based. Because health has nothing to do with it. And if you want to be healthy, then be healthy. Weight doesn't need to come into it. So pretty much every reason somebody can tell me that they want to lose weight, underneath it is shame, embarrassment. Now, you cannot tell me that that's a healthy mindset. How did shame ever help anyone in an empowering way? So if you lived on a desert island, this is the test for me. If you lived on a desert island And or even better, even if you lived in a culture where you being a bigger set person, or a heavier set person, meant that flowers were laid at your front door like a god or goddess because of the appreciation for your body type. People swooned as you walked past because of your looks and your beauty, your perceived size. And it was pretty normal. Would you care about the way your body looked? I know it's hard to get there because of the society that we live in, but the only reason, because then people kind of go, yeah, because I feel heavy or I feel tired. You can feel heavy or tired and be slim. The heaviness and the tiring probably is, the omega-6. You're not sleeping enough. You're not fit enough or healthy enough. That's great. Go move your body because it feels amazing to do that. That has nothing to do with the weight.
It's so funny when you're chatting there, Jess, because I've woke up in the morning feeling amazing, like feeling really great, and then jumped on the scales and it's not had the figure on it that I've wanted, and then I felt miserable.
Right.
And then it's like that's just insane. I'm like, why did I do that? That is insanity. And I felt great beforehand.
It's I mean the whole thing is kind of mindset, and this is where the NLP for me comes in. It's like I've got to go through the science, because I'm up against a lot of prejudice here. There's a lot of indoctrination here, and everything that you read about this will often then be followed up with, so here's the diet that you need to go on to affect your set point. Stop thinking about like weight loss and diets and body image and start living your life. I mean, yeah, that's the message for me, for anybody, is like, love, unconditionally loving yourself, feeling amazing, you're getting on with your life regardless of what you look like. Because I guarantee that at any size, there'll be people that don't like it and there'll be people that do like it. So the only two people that really make a difference is the person who wants to have sex with you and the person who you live in, which is you. And as I've said to most of my clients that worry about this sort of thing, when you've actually been with a guy and you've been naked, or when you've been with a woman and you've been naked, has that person ever kind of gone, oh well, no, oh dear, this is embarrassing. You looked all right in clothes. I'm going to call you an Uber because I can't do this. If it happened, you'd have had the luckiest game of your life, wouldn't you? So I don't think it's happened. And at some point, we're all going to be old. And I think if you base a relationship based on your attractiveness in your youth, then what's going to happen when you get older? So that's how dieting affects set points. So don't do it. Stop dieting immediately if you don't want things to get really, really bad. Okay, so this is my lovely diagram. I don't think you need to go through the whole diagram, but basically, yeah, this is why it spirals, just because of that set point, the signals and everything else. I can always make this, the set of slides available to you afterwards. Okay, so what is the real problem then? Omega-6. So it's not the omega-6 is like the bad hormone, because I know that the weight loss industry, it's like, okay, now omega-6 is the devil, because that's not the case. It's the balance of omega-3 to omega-6, and it needs to be about 1-to-1 for you to have that kind of healthy balance. So omega-3, the balance in most of things, even nuts, seeds, winter foods, is heavily heavily biased towards omega-6, because they're winter foods. It tells your body winter is coming, put on more fat. So the real problem is omega-6, bad governmental advice around saturated fats and making you move towards more vegetable oils and dieting. Okay? Those are the real problems. No, I don't want to, this is just a bit more science in terms, because people kind of go, well, how do you get, like, what happens like when you get to 30 stone? Like, what's happened there? And this is kind of the snowball effect of insulin. And again, insulin for me is a major issue, because insulin, and people talk about insulin resistance and things like that, but insulin resistance from a GNM perspective, so any of you that follow the healing work that I do with German New Medicine, diabetes is a resistance conflict. It is basically saying that you are so like preoccupied with the sense that you might have to fight somebody, that your blood glucose remains high so that your muscles can use it to fight. So it's like a readiness disease. But of course, in nature, you would only be feeling like you had to fight someone temporarily. But and that's what causes the cells to say, no, don't take it. Keep it in the blood in case, in case we need to go, in case we need to fight. So it kind of makes sense. There's nothing wrong with the body. It's just, it's having to do it longer than it would ever have to do it in nature, which eventually the insulin, the copious amounts of insulin that has to get produced to kind of force the cells to take any glucose, blocks the same pathways that leptin uses in the brain. So instead of leptin being received by the brain to say, oh, cool, we've got enough fat stores, you've got insulin getting in the way. And when your body gets inflamed as well, which is, a knock-on effect of all this crap as well, I think it's called TNF alpha is another hormone, and that blocks leptin receptors as well, which says, cool, we're not fat enough yet, so eat more. So it can snowball to a point where the more the person tries to diet, or because they're told their diabetes is killing them, the just more out of control it gets. So if you go right back to the cause, insulin, as far as I'm concerned, like the actual cause of a disease is the problem, not the symptom, which could be high blood sugar or obesity. Okay. So we've got things that affect our set point, epigenetics, right? So a sense that, I guarantee my mum would have been on a diet during her pregnancy with me. But that is something you can deal with. Genetic natural selection, that just makes you predisposed to being heavier set or good at preventing weight loss. That I don't think that makes you fat, as it were, because nobody comes out of the womb like that. Now, our age, obviously, menopause, hormonal changes, and get this, moving in with someone. Everybody thinks, oh, they've got comfortable. Nah, it's nature's way of saying, right, you need extra fat because you're about to have a baby. It makes sense. It just makes total sense. Having children and so on and so on. If most women will pack on weight around their bum, which is your breast milk fat. Makes total sense. Social cues, again, this whole kind of social sense of celebrating with food and the types of food that you eat. Learned behavior, environmental factors, circadian rhythms, not getting enough sleep, and a hormone. So cortisol being another one. Okay, so what changes? So this is the bit now. What changes do we need to make? Well, the most important one is stop this diet of shame. That is the first thing. When somebody talks about weight loss to me, I want to talk about shame. I want to talk about body image. I want to talk about the reasons. I want to talk about the panic that they feel at not being able to lose weight. I want to talk about the helplessness that they feel. I want to talk about the denial of self, the harming themselves that they're doing. That's what I want to talk about first. That's what I want to heal with someone. Because, not going out of your house because you're terrified of being fat shamed, that is not okay. So that needs to be dealt with, number one. And then getting somebody to a state where they can be in joy and unconditional love as their natural diet, that for me is like starting point, is that. And this is a really, really interesting one, right? So what practical changes can we make? So I guarantee you, most people who have been on a diet have kind of thought to themselves, right, once I've lost the weight, then I'm going to do this to maintain it, right? That's my plan of my lifestyle change. Then I'm going to do that to maintain it. So Andrew Jenkinson just says, why don't you just do that now? Right? Why don't you just skip the diet, and any changes you were going to make that were going to make you feel great and, you know, get you out there and do more, just do it now. Don't wait. So if you were going to eat healthily, so right, oh, well, I'm going to go on these shakes to lose weight, but then I'm going to eat just vegetables and, you know, and just really healthy food. Right? Or skip the shakes, do the healthy food. And when you lose weight, oh, then I was going to take up these sports. Then I was going to go out and socialize more and feel more love and connection. We'll do that now. And maybe the happiness and the joyfulness and the general health benefits from having that in your life might actually help you more. And there's, by the way, this woman, she's called Curvy Surfer Girl. And I love her. And I follow her on Instagram and I love her so much. And actually, it's a bit creepy and weird, but I do really love her. I don't think she finds me creepy and weird, but I do really love her. So she just gives these beautiful pictures on her Instagram of her surfing and living her best life. And that for me is another practical change that you can make. Okay, so on this diagram here, so balance your omega-3, omega-6. If you do eat meat, start eating grass-fed meat, and most chickens will be corn-fed. I mean, they'll be grain-fed. So you can do with that as you will, but ditch the vegetable oil, go back to coconut oil, or even olive oil is kind of better, but don't leave it in the sunlight because that kills the omega-3 as well. Get more sleep. If you have a choice, if you're tired, if you have a choice between exercising and going to bed, go to bed. Bed wins every time. Extra sleep, extra sleep. If you know you haven't had enough sleep, have more sleep. If you are stressed, that will affect your set point. That will affect your set point because the stress is telling your body, it doesn't understand stress other than I need more to deal with this. So it's going to think, I'm going to need to have more fat stores. I'm going to need more glucose in my bloodstream. It's never going to send a positive message if it's just general stress. So deal with the stresses and relax. Exercise because you want to exercise and it feels good, not to lose weight. That's the change. Stop counting the number of calories that you've burned on the machine. Change who you follow on Instagram. So the was it Fat Doctor UK? She is feisty, to say the least, but she is really waging a war. And she's had a few fitness professionals hate on her like is very undignified for anyone, let alone people that are in a position of you know, what's the word? Being influence, thank you, yes. And if you follow, particularly, you know, medical doctors that are very, they call it kind of health at every weight, or every size, sorry, health at every size, HAES. And there's a whole website, and I'll put that in the when I post up their recording. Health at every size. It's all the science, all the leaflets that tells you that if you're being told that your weight is the problem, this literature will help give you some support around that it's not, and that, you know, you don't have to listen to that. So it's all science-based. But yeah, overnight, changing who you follow on Instagram can change your life. So I follow these beautiful plus-size models. Curvy Surfer Girl, she's my favorite. But look, you know, change your diet. Change the diet that you are indoctrinating. You're not going to see necessarily this always on the mainstream media. You're not going to see it on the TV. You can choose on social media who you follow. And that then becomes your diet of people giving you permission to live your damn life and at any size. And it's beautiful. And I think that can be one of the biggest shifts, especially for young people, to see that there is, beautiful women of any size, beautiful men of any size, just living their damn lives and healthy as and well. Other thing, ditch the scales. Stop weighing yourself. Yeah, there's only one reason to weigh yourself, and that is about because you're trying to lose weight. Don't do it. And it can take a long time to get your head around the weight thing, because you've got to challenge all the beliefs that you've got around, oh, but if I put on weight, blah blah blah. But trust. Because I don't want to talk about losing weight, but I know that some people are like, well, what do I do about my set point? How do I reduce my set point? That is basically the same as saying, how do I lose weight? And for me, that's the issue. So if you do, I'm going to say this once, if you want to change your set point, you have to reassure your body that you're not going to starve it again. You have to reassure it that it doesn't need to be inflamed. It doesn't need to create insulin. You need to reassure it that it's perfectly well and it's a safe environment. So you need to feed it well. You need to feed it healthy, actual healthy food that the body can actually process. And you need to move it in a way that makes it feel nice. You need to get it to sleep. And if you do all of those things, you'll be so healthy, you won't give a shit what you weigh. And then instead of this value of weight loss, the value will be health and vitality, which is where it needs to be anyway, for a happy life. Oh, and happiness and joy, maybe even ahead of that. Unfollow anyone on social media who is subtly or not so subtly promoting weight loss. You will be surprised how many adverts you're getting. If you follow certain accounts, you're going to get loads of adverts about certain kinds of exercise training, and just change who you follow. You'll get different adverts that, where you can try out what kind of weird adverts you want to get. Stop counting calories. Stop even thinking about the notion of calories. Stop dieting. In fact, if anything, don't be hungry. Like, don't shove in bread and stuff that your body will perceive as, shit, winter is coming, or I don't know what to do with this. Eat plenty of food to, again, reassure yourself that you are not starving. You are not going to starve. You will never starve it again. These are the practical things. And end weight stigma. So again, this not mentioning weight loss, not talking about it, not promoting it. When clients come to you and they want to to lose weight, help them to look at joy, unconditional love, and vitality being way better, way more life affirming than a drop in, on the scales, even though they've got a lifetime of prejudice.
Yes, I don't know if I can share quickly. It's quite interesting. I'll just take a couple of minutes. But I've been on this journey. So I've been on this journey. I yo-yo dieted. I lost loads of weight for my wedding, and then was really mentally unwell. Had to go on tablets. Ended up putting on weight, and then went on this big self-acceptance journey. Did exactly everything you've said on here, and it was so liberating. And I was like, yes. This is what I want. Then when I started doing NLP and I saw my outcome was me thinner. And for the first time ever, I started to then think of myself thinner again. And I was like, where's this come from? So I started going back to old behaviors, because it's the only way I knew how to change my body shape. So I started counting calories, got a personal trainer, and the way that my eating behaviors have changed since doing that is crazy. So I've now gone back to eating stuff that I don't even enjoy, and eating so much chocolate, so many takeaways. It's like had the reverse effect. Yeah. It's really weird. So as soon as I started focusing on, actually, I'm super happy, like I love my body, but I'd quite like it to be a bit smaller again and fit back into some of my clothes. like all of these other, as soon as I started counting calories again and getting on the scales again, it had the exact reverse opposite effect. I've stopped going to the gym now, and I loved going to the gym before, because I'm like, the only reason I'm going to the gym is to lose weight, and I've gone on this like pendulum swing back the other way, and I actually stopped unfollowing body positive people and started following people around weight loss, and it's just had the exact opposite effect that I wanted it to have.
This gives credit to the underlying cause. For me, the underlying cause of the whole problem. So partly you mentioned it, but it sounds like parts to me as well. So make sure you've done any kind of integration on, you know, you bolstered one part, but maybe the other part was lacking. So if they've not been integrated, probably it's time. But yeah, for me, think about like, for example, in German medicine, water retention, if you go right the way back to our origins as organisms, we lived in, you know, single-celled organisms in water. If you dried up, you know, if you floated up onto a rock and the sun came out, you'd die. So it made sense that those cells that could kind of pad themselves with more water would survive even if they came out of the water for a little bit, because there would be enough water in the cell to protect them before the tide came in and pulled them back in. So even from our, you know, absolute origins, any sense of feeling like a fish out of water, and German medicine calls it a refugee conflict. So it's any kind of sense of abandonment as a child, you know, any sense that you might be left without resources will result in kidney issues, water retention, because it's all based on this idea that we need to, you know, keep resources because we don't know how long we might need them before we get kind of pushed back into the safety of the ocean. Now, think about, as we've evolved, needing food as well, not obviously as urgently as water, but definitely as a child, thinking about, you know, being rejected, it would make some kind of sense that if you felt there was some threat to being rejected, that there was some kind of rejection, isolation, that your brain might perceive that as you needing to fend for yourself and, you know, look after yourself and pack on more weight to just in case. And then, you know, compound that with dieting, obviously. But the moment that you start rejecting yourself and thinking about the potential for shame and not being enough in the body that you're in, for me, I think that is what causes the immediate kind of issue around weight gain. And also the mental health aspects of shame and depression and not, you know, living your full life means that food becomes a very easy way to meet your needs as well. So it's like, you know, comfort on top of that. So I think, you know, the cycle of shame is for me probably the underlying, you know, the stress and the shame of it. If you heal that, that's a good way, you know, in terms of returning your vitality. And then if your set point changes, well, that's wonderful. You know, if that's, because I know that's what that's still on everyone's mind, you know, it's like, how do I reduce my set point? It's not doing any of the things that you've been doing is the point. And of course, even thinking about it is still the problem. Right? So that for me is the power.
The other one thing I'd probably just add to that slide is like really truly listening to your body, because I did that and was like, do you know what, I don't even like eating that stuff, it doesn't make me feel good, and I know what makes me feel good when I truly listen. And then I went back onto calorie counting and forgot all of that and just was like, I'm going to eat low fat yogurts, and hated the taste of them. Ate crisps because they were low calorie crisps and they made me really thirsty. And if you truly listen to your body, like, it knows what it wants.
Yes. Absolutely, I agree. I think it's and also because the moment that you've gone into that weight loss cycle, your appetite hormone goes nutso, and that's the thing to remember, and stays nutso. It doesn't stop. So it's like, just stay away from the notion of it at all, because your brain is too quick and too clever for you. I sometimes look at it like your poor brain, your poor subconscious mind just watches, you know, the ridiculous behavior that we do as human beings. And it's like, what do you want me to do with you? Like, you know, you are crazy. I'm going to have to just like try to stop you from doing that. Why would you do that? Obviously, the perception of your subconscious mind doesn't have the benefits of understanding the 21st century, and that, you know, no, but I really want to, you know, be accepted in this bikini. It doesn't care about that. It cares about you surviving. So from NLP point of view, this is the approach that I would take. Timeline, re-imprint for Master Prax, or timeline for everyone else. Core beliefs about your body weight, your size, your shape, and not being enough already. Like, as you are, what beliefs you've got that tell you they're not enough. You need to release negative emotions, so timelines around judgment, shame, prejudice that make you want to diet just to conform, fit in, be acceptable, be desirable, and anything that stops you from just living your best life now. So if there are things that somebody wants to do, but they're putting them off, that is for me the bit to work on. The bit they're putting, you know, why are you putting that off? Get on with it. Life is incredibly short. And if you're not doing what you want to do, one day it really will be too late to do it. So don't, you know, got to release negative emotions around that. If you are feeling tired, lethargic and ill, rather than blaming weight for it, release negative emotions on the tiredness and the lethargy, and think of anything else that's really in your life that's dragging you down. Not feeling enough would do it. So, you know, release negative emotions on those things too. Now, again, this is, if you wanted to, you could use a metaphor like the garden that I use in Superpower School, to visualize your weight set point and the damage that dieting has done to it. You can set up, you know, kind of whatever imagery you want in your unconscious mind, and then visualize healing the damage. Now, for me, I wouldn't necessarily think about it as, okay, it's about weight loss. For me, it would be like, we are not going to famine again. Right? Food is plentiful. You know, imagine like this kind of the sense my body has of it being a desert out there. You know, and you might get lost in the wilderness, so pack some stores. Maybe by kind of replanting that desert and making it really green and giving your subconscious mind a sense that no, we will never starve. We will never have famine again. It's safe to increase metabolism, give me as much energy as I want, and so on and so on. If you want to as well, I mean, visualizing the way that your body works as well. So imagine, you know, the leptin being released by your body and received by the brain. If you do want to, you know, as a practical, if you're exercising, if you're moving, I exercise, I hate that word. If you're moving around, insulin will, blood glucose will be lower. And again, then you won't have as much insulin getting in the way of the brain receptors for the leptin. And that for me is like the disease process that is okay to talk about. Right, so the disease process of having high blood sugar and then exercising as one, or moving around as one way to reduce excess blood sugars, just so that you don't get into that disease process, that's fine. But again, visualize the brain receiving the right hormones. Any food relationships that are messed up. So, God, I was rewarded for eating and then punished for being fat. And it was like, I don't understand this. This makes no sense. Is it good or is it bad? So any foods that are associated with celebration, with comfort, all of those things, you can disconnect the emotion to. So unwiring a synesthesia if you're a master prac, or just plain old, you know, collapsing anchors, releasing negative emotions, submodality changes, anything you would do with an addictive food stuff, that you could swish pattern on, you know, I have to finish the packet of biscuits and so on. That for me is more about what you've learned about when you've finished a meal, which comes from childhood. You know, like when can you stop eating? When your plate is clear, then you can get down and go play, or then you get your pudding, or do you stop because your tummy tells you to stop? Right. So those are the kinds of swish patterns and strategy changes at Master Prac that you can work on, again, to heal the relationship with food. So exactly like Sarah says, you can actually feel into what your body actually wants right now, rather than, oh, but I want to feel good about myself. I need to, you know, hark back to that time I was praised for eating all my food, given a biscuit for being a good girl. And those are the kinds of things you can heal. Remove any obstacles, getting more sleep. So sleep, 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 more sleep, more sleep. Sleep all day. Your basal metabolic rate, remember, 70%. Passives, like 30%. So getting more sleep aids weight loss. It just, right, it certainly doesn't hurt, but it gets rid of cortisol. So any ongoing stresses, just collapse anchors, timeline them. And this is really important. Ensure that your 3 basic emotional needs are being met in positive ways. The more you're worried about weight and weight loss and everything else, the more crap about yourself that you feel, and that's going to affect your significance. If you think you're going to be rejected, it's going to affect your love and connection as well. If you feel helpless to control your certainty bucket's going to be empty. So make sure you've got ways to fill up your needs and take the charge away from those things that are draining your needs, making you feel crap, basically. Cool. And I'm not getting any kickbacks from Andrew Jenkinson, but I do recommend that you read his book. It's probably there's loads of stuff out there on this now that I'm aware of it. There's loads of stuff talking about it, but it's all thinly veiled with so do this to lose weight if it's commercial. And other than selling his book, the only other thing Andrew Jenkinson does is lecture medical students and bariatric surgery. So he deals with people where leptin resistance, like, literally refuses their body to let them lose weight, so they do get to kind of 30 stone and so on. So he helps people who it's not about getting thinner. He helps them rebalance the body with surgery, and because it works to cure diabetes and everything, that's what his passion is, rightly or wrongly. That's why he wrote the book, to help people before they get into that awful place. And remember, people that came to him have all dieted. They've all tried and made the situation worse, and to the point where they've had to have surgery because they've made it so bad. So hopefully I've made sense enough that you're convinced of the premise. So has anybody got any questions or thoughts or comments? Feel free, if you don't believe anything I've said, to say something.
No, thank you, Jess. I believe absolutely everything you said. I don't know if you can see me.
I can, yeah.
I can't see because my camera's over there and my screen's over there. It's one of those. I've read lots and lots and lots and lots of things, and you've put it in a concise and comprehensible way that I can go, yeah, okay, yeah, I know now. I know what they mean about leptin. Oh, yeah, well, that's the cortisol thing. All these things washing around my head, not making sense. And I have a page full of notes. It says, meditate, be happy. Yeah. So thank you for putting it in a way that, like, touched us really, without all the bullshit, without all the commercial bullshit.
Yeah, well, thank you. And no one has ever described me as concise, so that has made my absolute year.
I would say you're concise for me, babe.
Compared to what, I guess, is the answer. Compared to what? Yeah, I've been concise compared to having to listen to a book for 10 hours on twice this. I got to about 2.5 times the speed on my audiobooks. Like, it's like speed reading, but I speed listen to everything now because I just don't have the time. So I'm just like, right, a 10-hour book, how fast can I make that in minutes? So yeah, any other, thanks Helen, any questions, anything else?
Sorry, did you touch on any trauma related to weight loss?
Well, again, do you mean as in weight gain?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, exactly, like anything that your body perceives as a good reason to put on weight. So whether it's a protective mechanism, like a lot of if and it's not just women, men as well, but if there's been sexual assault in the past, it is really natural for the body to respond to that with a sense of how can I keep people away from me physically, and to create like a barrier. So yeah, absolutely, it's a really great point, because that is, probably one of the, in a trite way, one of the easier things to solve for people is actually you don't need to feel that trauma anymore. You don't need those barriers. It's safe to let people near you, as it were. I definitely remember losing weight on a diet and walking out of the house for the first time ever, I think, with like a short skirt on in my adult years, and somebody wolf whistled me and I just freaked out, like a panic attack, and I just went home and just binged for about 6 weeks just to put the weight back on. So yes, I was terrified, because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be assaulted again. I'm not safe. I need to be invisible. I need to be, so yeah, that makes, I'm glad that you've mentioned that, Kelly. It's not something I thought to mention. So yeah, and again, who's in the best position to help people? You guys, with the actual stuff that needs healing, frankly. I'm just reading the comments here. So yeah, I cried when I read the book. I was in bits for a few days, actually, like completely. So I definitely recommend. It's lovely to have somebody tell you it's, there's nothing wrong with your, you don't need to be ashamed, and you don't need to do this to yourself anymore.
My video is on, yeah.
Oh, say that.
No, hi Jess, sorry. I was just telling H my video's on because it's going to walk past me. So I wanted to make a contribution, Jess.
Thank you, yes, please.
Okay, yeah, there's a lady, an African-American lady, was working at the American Embassy, and she had to go back. And I was asking her how her daughter found it, her teenage daughter. And she said she's really happy that she brought her daughter here, because in the West, and there was a study on this, I can't give you the details, but she said there was a study that said that people in the West definitely have more body shaming tendencies than those in Africa. And I remember when you came here, even at the hotel, when women were in a swimming costume and just no matter what size they were very comfortable and just happy to be out. And I realized that I still don't have a scale. I don't count calories, and hardly would you have food in Ghana where somebody will tell you how many calories are in it. So I'm just linking the impact of socialization and the culture and how that affects how we see food and how we feel about our bodies. So yeah, I think everything you said has been really useful, and the influence of how we're raised definitely makes a big difference in how we perceive our bodies and how we look at food. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that, Jen. Like, really similar experiences with food was like this thing to get so excited about and enjoy, and there was never a scale. Like why on earth would you have that in your house?
When I was in Hong Kong, I got complimented by my dressmaker for having put on weight, because that means you're rich and you're well fed. And I was like, yeah, okay.
It's just funny, isn't it? It's kind of just such a notion that you should all want to be, that anybody should want to be a certain size. It just doesn't make sense. in a logical way, it doesn't make sense.
Just look at Rubens, the portraits, the Rubens.
Oh yes, the artist, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're Rubenesque, my dear.
Well, this is it. It's like just the just all it's kind of all bodies are beautiful, but if you think that's still subjective, isn't it? It's still saying something about an appearance, and actually, I'd rather talk about, are you kind? Are you happy? Are you joyful? I'd much rather have that sort of a conversation, because that's the most important thing. So yeah, so whatever you need to do to be free of shame and more joyful and happy and doing whatever you want to do with your life, that is what to use NLP for, and hopefully steer anyone away from like this potentially, awful spiral of dieting before it's really too late, before they really do some damage. So I hope, at least if nothing else goes, that's the message that gets through, is just stop bloody dieting. That's the main message. And,
Jess?
Yeah.
I was just wondering your thoughts. I don't know if you've heard, I think it's Paul McKenna who does a hypno-gastric band. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, again, the idea of that is to make you feel fuller and eat less, right? So in theory, there's nothing wrong with feeling fuller and eating less, if that makes sense, if that's naturally the case. The problem is the mindset around weight loss. The moment your body perceives that you are losing weight, it freaks out. So if you lose fat really quickly, it freaks out and lowers your metabolism, which I think anyone who's ever tried to lose weight would agree is the bad thing. So if it's accompanied, the whole notion that you're trying to lose weight is the problem, if that makes sense. So whether it's hypnotic or an actual gastric band, the only surgery that I think this guy says works is the gastric bypass, right? So rather than the gastric band, it's literally they cut out the stomach, and the reason why is if you dump food into the duodenum or the small intestine, it freaks out and sends out like a message to take all the glucose out of the blood supply. So literally kind of cures diabetes. I don't know what problems it causes in the long run, but it doesn't sound ideal to bypass a perfectly good organ. So the jury's out on that one. But yeah, it's the notion of weight loss for me that's the problem.
Yeah, I totally get it. It was interesting because I remember after I finished NLP training, I stopped eating lots of sugary foods. I had an addiction to Haribo. I didn't have that. I had an addiction to fizzy drinks, and I wasn't trying to lose any weight. And then somebody said to me, "Oh, you've lost weight." And the moment I noticed it, my body went into the opposite direction. It just was like, no. We're not here to lose weight. If that's what's happening, we have to put the brakes on.
That's it. So this is it. This is why the whole notion for me, it's like whatever you have to do, it's hard. It's almost like an addiction, right? It's like, no, that is my solution for being accepted and happy. I have to lose weight. It's like, no, you don't. You need to be happy and accept yourself. And then anything that happens after that, as long as it's vitality, is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. And I just, oh, yeah. And it's
Yes,
very in the society that we're living in.
How does it link in to the stuff that they talk about in The Secret and the quantum thinking around if you want to have a certain body shape, to focus on that? Because that feels as though what we've spoke about tonight is almost like you don't want to do that because you don't want your body to be like scared of losing weight and getting thin.
I think if you were going to bother to do anything like, the resonance of The Secret and the law of attraction, it would be see yourself living the life that you want to live, first of all, right? So if you were going to do anything, waste any time on anything, I would probably say, right, visualize yourself happy, vital, fit, if that's what, if you like doing it, a particular sport or whatever, vital, living the life that you want to live, doing the kinds of things you want to do, being loved by the kind of people that you want to be loved by, feeling confident the way you want to feel confident. And just like you would attract a partner without seeing their face, without putting characteristics on them, but the way that they feel when they show up, that is what I would do. I would say, don't dictate to your body what it's going to look like in order to have the life of your dreams. Focus on what it feels like to be totally joyful, confident, happy, loved, accepted, the way that you are, successful, just spend the time on that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Because actually you can be freaking miserable and the right size for you, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, I've reached my size, now I'm miserable, but hey, great. I've conformed, so now my dream should come true. Doesn't work that way. So yeah. So I would say the secret, I know Rhonda Byrne even says, a lovely accent that she says, I can't remember what she said, but she says I thought about the food, like, what was it? I can't remember how she did it, but she talked about, and now I'm slim, and I can't remember how I literally hear her voice saying how she lost weight using The Secret, but actually she sounded a lot more at peace.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That whole point was that she was at peace with whatever she was doing, and imagining the food nourishing her, and imagining, rather than cool, I'm losing weight, which is, no organism on the planet goes, cool, I'm losing weight. Just not right.
Yeah. I just feel that in terms of law of attraction, I just feel it depends on the 5% of your conscious brain to make the decision, when the 95% of your subconscious brain that is saying, I can't lose weight because I'm not safe. I can't lose weight because it means I'll have more men or women, if you're a man, more attracted to me, so I'm not going to be safe. It doesn't take into account that part of it for me.
Well, this is where the healing has to happen, right? And that healing has to happen for you to have vitality. That healing has to happen so you can have joy and unconditional love in your life. So we're talking about a values shift for me. It's before, and again, my intention was never to be slim. After years and years and years of dieting, I realized my intention was never to be slim. It was to not be beaten up because people didn't like the way I looked. It was to not be attacked, not to be verbally criticized, not to be assaulted, not to be rejected, not to be not to feel worthless, not to feel abandoned. All of those things associated with being fat to me. And so the only reason I would ever go on a diet was so that I didn't have to feel all those feelings. It was never because I looked in the mirror and I was like, whoa, cool, I like the way I look now. Had nothing to do with it. It was, oh, good, I look acceptable now. People won't attack me. Right? So that is the disease. That is the disease right there, is the notion that the subconscious mind, like you said, Kelly, thinks it's going to be rejected, attacked, brutalized because of the way it looks. That is not a safe space to be. And that's a conscious sense of safety as well, whereas the subconscious says, well, it's not safe for me to lose weight either, because, if we are going to be rejected, I'd probably like to be able to feed myself. So yeah, has to be, you have to focus on the healing for the soul first, I think. And that's the key. So yeah, so I would just kind of end by saying that, one day, hopefully we will live in a utopia where we'll all feel great about putting on the bikinis because we feel like wearing a bikini, and we will feel totally and utterly accepted and cherished and applauded for the joy we express and not the size of our bodies. Thank you very much for coming along. It's been fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jess. It's been really informative. Thank you.
Thank you. And so concise. Look at me. 2 hours later.
No. That's nice.
Welcome.
It's definitely saved you time reading the book. For sure.
And it's wonderful to see you again.
Oh, you too, Helen.
I'm glad to be back, and I would like to be back more.
Oh, definitely. Please do. Your accent is much more French since I've seen you. Definitely.
I have become French. Huh?
The transition is almost complete.
Oh dear. No, I'm practicing I'm terribly British.
Oh, fine. Well, if you've got both. Now we'll think you're French, which is gorgeous. That lovely sound.
Oh God, do I really sound my French? My sister's going to have a go at me again.
Lovely. All right. Any questions that you didn't want to ask, feel free to email them to me directly. It's pretty much, other than the NLP aspects of things, that the book is pretty awesome in its entirety of the science. There's also kind of YouTube videos by Andrew Jenkinson where he kind of does some lectures and so on that you might like if you like videos. But other than that, I hope to see you again soon, and that you share this information far and wide with anyone and everyone who needs it. And thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Jess. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.